Those two doors, please. And the side door over there, please. All right, we're live. Share the link. What page is that?
169 in the PDF.
Page 169 in the PDF? Khudaima, can you get Abdullah too? Get Abdullah too. We're ready to start page 169. Just open page 169 in your books.
It's actually 174 in the book.
174 in the book and 169 in the PDF, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I put the top part out.
And the PDF is pinned to the top of the chat in the group. All right, so let's review a little bit because I know we have some new people online. So we can kind of just review a couple basic things about zakat. First of all, who can tell us what are the 5 pillars and why are they important? You got this one. Let's in order. This one, right? I've always told you in order, and I've told you the order, and I've emphasized the order. You got this. What's the first thing you have to do to come into Islam?
Oh, you're not talking about for the zakat.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I'm getting there. Shahada is the first thing. The declaration of faith is the first pillar of Islam, right? Right after that is Salat, right? Your 5 daily prayers. Then then Zakat, right? Which is the obligatory charity. Then fourth is fasting in the month of Ramadan.
I was about to say one of the,
And fifth is Hajj, right? And these are the 5 things on which the whole religion is based on. The 5 important things that we need to do. And that's why in the book it goes into them in detail in this order. Right? We talked about the declaration of faith first, what that means, that there's no one worthy of worship except for Allah, and that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger, and what all of that means. And we talked extensively about prayer and how we need to pray 5 times a day, the purification for prayer and things like this. So now we're on the third pillar, which is zakat.
Question
Mhm.
about zakat, real quick. Zakat depends on what you have that's excess only, right? I mean, if you don't own anything at all, you don't have any extra money in the bank or anything, you don't pay zakat.
Well, I wouldn't say what's excess. It's based on the assets that you own, right? We talked about this. The zakat is based on what you own. And there's a minimal limit. If you don't have value over that minimal amount, then it's not an obligation for you to pay zakat, to pay that obligatory. So Zakat is the obligatory charity that's given once a year, and sadaqah is the charity that you give anytime. It's not an obligation, but it's also very important for Muslims to give sadaqah, whether it's in their time or money. Um, so the obligatory zakat that, like we said, has something called nisab, right? That if you have a certain amount, and we calculated what was it, like $10,000, if we calculate according to gold, so around $10,000, and that's not a fixed amount. There's a calculation for it. But if you don't have money in excess of that, let's say everything, you put together your money in your bank account, it's $5,000, and you don't have to give zakat. If it's over 10,000, then you do. And even over 10,000, how much do you end up paying? It's what? It's $250 on $10,000. So it's not a huge amount either. But again, you won't calculate things that are in your use, like your house that you live in, or your car, the one that you drive, the ones that you drive. If you had something for a business, let's say like a property that's you're looking to sell, and that's an investment property, then that would be calculated for zakat, not the house that you live in. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there's different categories of wealth on which zakat is given, right? We talked about gold and silver, a business inventory, livestock, agriculture. So there's different types of wealth on which zakat is given. But I think this next chapter that's coming up is also very important, because it tells us what are some of the benefits of giving zakat. Why is this important? All right, so let's start. If somebody would like to read, please.
Okay, some benefits of paying zakat. Complying with the order of Allah and His Messenger, and giving precedence to what Allah and His Messenger love over the selfish love for wealth. Number 2, multiplying the reward of one's good deeds. Allah said, the likeness of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is as the likeness of a grain of corn. It grows 7 ears, and each ear has 100 grains. Allah gives manifold increase to whom He pleases.
Okay, so the first benefit of paying zakat is to comply with the order of Allah and His Messenger in giving precedence to Allah and His Messenger, and love over their love over the selfish love for wealth. So giving zakat makes us realize that our wealth isn't just for us, and that our purpose isn't just to gain money in life. There is a component of giving charity and being generous in that. I think I may have mentioned this, but it's worth mentioning again, that some of the companions, the ones who are poor, they felt some kind of way because they couldn't give in charity. So what they would do, they would go out and work as laborers in the markets, carrying stuff, and whatever wages that they would gain, they would give that in zakat, or they would give that in charity. And that was their eagerness, you could say, for good deeds. So we should also be eager in good deeds and generous in giving our zakat, and not selfish as far as hanging on to our wealth and being stingy with it. The second one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiplies the rewards of one's good deeds. As He said, the likeness of those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah is as the likeness of a grain of corn. It grows 7 ears, and each ear has 100 grains. And Allah gives manifold increase to whom He pleases. So whatever you give in the path of Allah, Allah multiplies it. And in this example, you know, there's 7 ears of corn for, let's say you gave one thing in zakat. uh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiplies by seven and then times 100, so about 700. And this is related to the sincerity we have in it. If we give something sincerely to Allah, with our belief sincerely in Allah, then He multiplies it even more. So what you give to Allah, um, you should think about what you give in charity, whether it's to a poor person or all the categories of people. You're helping somebody, but in essence, you're giving that to Allah as an investment. And if you're doing it with sincerity, He multiplies it many, many times. Number 3.
Giving in charity and paying zakat is a proof of one's belief and a marker indicating its presence, as mentioned in the hadith. Charity is a proof.
Okay, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in the famous hadith, "As-sadaqatu burhanun," charity is a proof. So giving charity is a proof of one's belief. Because if somebody is a true believer, part of our belief in Allah and part of our belief in this religion compels us and makes our hearts generous. If somebody says that they're Muslim, but they're very stingy and they don't care about poor people and people suffering, there's something really wrong in the way they believe. So, as Muslims, we can't be stingy. And if somebody doesn't have enough to give, at least they have the feeling that if I had something, I would give it. Right? Sometimes we see things in the world that we wish we could give to some people, but sometimes we don't have the means to do so, whether it's that we don't have the money to, or we don't have access to certain people in certain areas who we see are suffering, but there's not much we can do about it. But at least we have in our hearts the intention and the belief that if I had the opportunity, I would do so. Number 4.
Purification from the pollution of sins and degraded character. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, take sadaqah, alms, from their wealth in order to purify them and sanctify them with it.
Okay, so we mentioned this before, that giving charity is a purification for us. It cleanses us from our sins. Allah forgives our sins and cleans us from them. Things we do which are bad in our character, our charity, helps wipe that away. And even some mistakes we may have made in earning that money. Maybe it's not 100%. The top way of doing things. We may have made some mistakes. We may have done some things unintentionally, or because of some oversight that brought some sin into our earnings. So giving our charity cleanses us from that. Number 5.
The increase of wealth and the presence of blessing in it and its protection from its evil, as per the hadith. Wealth never decreases due to charity. And the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whoever you spend of anything in Allah's cause, He will replace it, and He is the best of providers.
So number 5, giving zakat, giving charity increases our wealth, the presence of blessings in it, and its protection from evil, as the hadith says, "Ma naqasa malun min sadaqatin," wealth never decreases due to charity. And whosoever of you spend anything in Allah's cause, He will replace it, and He is the best of providers. So, by giving charity, um, we may see increases in our wealth, in our income, or um, he may prevent losses from us. So, for example, um, the people who don't give charity, maybe that person got sick and had to spend a lot of money on their treatment and something like that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevented that from the believer who gave in charity because of that. Or he puts blessing in our wealth so it kind of stretches more. You know, you're able to run your affairs of your house on X amount of dollars, where a certain person who has a similar situation for you can't do that because of different situations that are going on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his ways of increasing our wealth, even if it's not numerically. And sometimes it is that. Sometimes you'll land a better job or get more projects, or if you're a shopkeeper, get more sales because you're giving in charity. Now, what's the difference between point number 5 and point number 2? So, pay attention. What's the difference between point number 5 and point number 2?
Point number 2 talks about the good deeds that you're receiving, and point number 5 talks about the money that you have.
Correct. So point number 2 talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala multiplying your good deeds.
Which seems an even better reward than multiplying the money.
Right, right. So, but this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's generosity. This is Allah's generosity towards us, that not only does he give us benefits in the afterlife by multiplying our good deeds, but he also takes care of us in this life by multiplying our wealth and sustenance. Okay, number 6.
The giver of charity will be in the shade of his charity on the day of judgment, as in the hadith about the 7 categories of the people that Allah will shade in his shade on the day where there will be no shade except his shade. And a man who gives charity secretly until his left hand doesn't know what his right hand spent.
So there are 7 types of people who on the day of judgment will have Allah, have the mercy of being under the shade of Allah. So on the day of judgment, the sun will be right over the people's heads, and it'll be very hot and oppressive. And the only people who will have any comfort from that are those who are in the shade of Allah. And there's 7 types of people who will be under that shade. Who knows those 7 people? You've heard this hadith before.
Yeah, I don't remember them.
I have heard it, but I don't know.
What types of people who don't have equipment brokers? Or who doesn't drink?
No. Come on. You've heard this hadith before.
Yeah, I don't know, I already told you.
I forgot it.
All right. Number 1, if you want to write this down or anything like that. The 7 people who will be in the shade of Allah on the day of judgment. The just ruler. A ruler, a leader, a king who governs justly by the laws of Allah. Number 2, the youth, the young person who grew up in the worship of Allah. Not just started worshiping Allah when they were older, but also was doing so when they were young. 3rd, the man whose heart is attached to the masjid. That that person who wants to be in the masjid often and prays frequently. That's 3. 4, the two people who love each other only for the sake of Allah. They love each other, they meet each other only for the sake of Allah and nothing else. They don't have any business transactions, they don't have any, even any relation with one another, but they just see each other and love each other for the sake of Allah. That's 4. Number 5, the man who is tempted by a beautiful woman and he says, I fear Allah, and he stops, whatever wrong action that he could have committed. Number 6, the person who gives so secretly in charity that the left hand doesn't know what his right hand has given. So not only gives in charity, but also doesn't tell anybody about it. Number 7, the person who remembers Allah alone while he's alone and his eyes become full of tears. Those are the 7 people who on the day of judgment will be in the shade of Allah when there will be no other shade to protect people. So the relation to this chapter is the one who gives charity so secretly that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand has given.
This charity is not just a capital in general.
It could be both. It's just because the word sadaqah, right, can be used for the obligatory charity. It can also be used for the optional charity, right? So this is a general statement. So even your zakat, you should give it as secretly as possible. There's no reason to tell people about it or show off or anything like that because that decreases our rewards. And in some cases, it negates any rewards. In some cases, it might even make you sinful. Got it? Number 7.
It is a cause for mercy of Allah, and my mercy embraces all things. That mercy I shall ordain for those who are muttaqun and give zakat.
All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that his mercy embraces all things. And that mercy shall be for those who are muttaqun, those who are pious and fear Allah, who are conscious of Allah, and who give zakat. So giving zakat is one of the ways to gain Allah's mercy. So those are the 7 points, and there's many, many more. But those are like 7 really, easy to understand and the main points of why we should give our charity. Any questions about that so far? All right, moving on. Any questions online? No? All right. What's the next chapter? Warning of?
Those who don't pay zakat.
Warning to those who don't pay zakat. Would somebody like to read? Okay.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and those who hoard up gold and silver, now comes the money, gold, and silver, etc., the zakat of which has been paid, and spend it not in the way of Allah. Announce unto them a painful torment on the day when that will be heated in the fire of hell, and with it will be branded on their foreheads, their flanks, and their backs, and it will be said unto them, this is the treasure of which you hoarded for yourselves. Now taste of what you used to hoard.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those who greedily hoard up and collect gold and silver, and they don't spend it in the way of Allah. It means they don't give their zakat on it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, announce unto them a painful torment. On the day when that will be heated in the fire of hell and it will be branded on their foreheads. So that gold and silver, whatever amount it was, it'll be heated in the hellfire and it'll be branded and burned into their foreheads, their flanks, their backs. And it'll be said to them, this is the treasure which you used to hoard up for yourselves. Now taste of what you used to hoard. So this way of greedily hoarding up money will only work against people. And this is a warning to them who don't give zakat. Okay, number two.
Ahmed and Muslim reported from I don't know how to say that.
Abu Huraira, yep.
um, that the Prophet ﷺ said, "There is none who possessed and stored wealth without paying its zakat, except that the wealth, will be heated in the fire of hell, then shaped into sheets with which his flanks and forehead will be branded until Allah judges between his slaves on a day whose length will be 50,000 years. Then he will be shown his path either to paradise or to hellfire."
Abu Hurairah narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there is no one who has possessed and stored wealth without paying its zakat, except that the wealth will be heated in the day of judgment, in the hellfire, and shaped into sheets with which his flanks and forehead will be branded until Allah judges between his slaves on a day whose length will be 50,000 years. Then it will be shown his path, whether it's paradise or hellfire. So those people who don't give zakat, it's similar to the first statement that they will be burned with the wealth that they had. Next.
Bukhari reported that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Whoever is made wealthy by Allah and does not pay the zakat of his wealth, then on the day of judgment his wealth will be made to appear in the form of a poisonous snake with two black spots over the eyes. It will coil around his neck, then it will seize him by the corners of his mouth, saying, 'I am your wealth, I am your treasure.'" Then he ﷺ recited this verse, "And let not those who
Covetously, yeah.
withhold that which Allah has bestowed on them of his bounty wealth, think that it is good for them, and so they do not have to pay the obligatory charity, zakat. Nay, it will be worse for them. The things which they covetously withheld shall be tied to their necks like a collar on the day of judgment."
Sometimes I wish they would use words that are a little bit easier. Covetously means like somebody who's greedy, who covets something, right? So they hold it back with greed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, whoever is made wealthy by Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds you that if you're wealthy, if you've been given money, that's because of Allah's blessing. Does not really have anything to do with you. Because there are plenty of people who are highly intelligent, very talented, who don't have. Just because of many reasons, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't bless them with a lot of money. And there's some people who are not too bright, but they're billionaires and president of the United States. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses whom He wills with what He wills. So um, whoever is made wealthy by Allah and does not pay his zakat of his wealth, then on the day of judgment his wealth will be made to appear in the form of a poisonous snake with two black spots over his eyes, and it will coil around his neck and it will seize him by the corners of his mouth, saying, "I am your wealth, I am your treasure." And then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said this verse, "And let not those who covetously or greedily withhold of that which Allah has bestowed upon them of His mercy think that it is good for them. No, it will be worse for them. The things that they greedily withheld shall be tied to their necks like a collar on the day of resurrection." So um, these things, just being greedy and withholding your wealth, it's in the long run not only going to harm you in this life, but it'll definitely catch up to you on the day of judgment. Number 4.
Severe punishment.
Yes.
Also reported to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam statement, there is no owner of camels or cows or goats or sheep who does not pay their zakat, except that they, the animals, will come on the day of judgment as big and fat as they ever got, boring him with their horns and trampling him with their hooves. As soon as the last of them has finished, the first of them is back again, and so on until judgment between the people is completed.
All right. So this is another type of punishment for those who own camels and cows and goats and sheep, the cattle, and they do not pay their zakat. Those cattle will come on the day of judgment, and they will be bigger and heavier and fatter than they ever were, and they will trample him and gore him with their horns, and trample them with his hooves, and that'll continue until the day of judgment, until judgment is completed, which is what, 50,000 years. So,
And then after the judgment's completed, they still end up in the hellfire.
depending on what Allah judges for them, right? Maybe they had some good deeds, and then this was their only punishment. That's also possible, right? So we don't know. We can't say anything that hasn't already been said. So, but the point here is, if you have the means to give zakat, then give it, because we don't want to be. Number one, we want the reward, and this giving shows our love for Allah and our love for our Muslim brothers and sisters. So we should be generous in giving that. And we should also know that if we don't give it, there's severe punishment for that.
Is there any detriment in giving some form of zakat, even if you're not obligated to do so because you don't have
If you
that much?
remember, I mean, this is the rule is that the person who has over the nisab must give it. If you don't have over the nisab and you still want to give some type of zakat or charity, that's completely up to you, and you'll be rewarded for it. Based on your intentions, you'll be rewarded for it. So yes, do it. If you have a cause that you can give even a small amount of money to or whatever, do it.
The punishment is for those who hoard their.
The punishment of those who have the money, it's obligated on them and they still don't do it. But don't also think that, oh, well, since I'm not wealthy, I can't give anything. Because that's not what the companions used to do. Even though that a lot of them were poor, they gave something. They gave whatever they could. Right? Some of them had very little and they gave out of that very little. So generosity is part of this. Wealth that we have is nothing worth loving. This whole life, our time and our wealth, we should be spending it to buy our way into Jannah. So if we have some money and we can buy good deeds for it by giving it to somebody and helping it, and that'll help us on the day of judgment, then do it. So any questions up to there?
I do have a question, it's not really discussed, but in Hadith said the length of the day was only 50,000 years. That's until the day of judgment start or until judgment is complete. Is there also a time where you will be just standing and waiting for judgment?
Yeah, there's a lengthy time where people will be standing and waiting for. They'll be gathered at the day of, at the place, but they'll just be waiting for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to start the judgment. So that's a very, very long time. And then from when he starts the judgment until the judgment is finished is also a long time.
What about the martyrs? They don't have to do stand and wait, or they also?
I mean, the martyrs. I think in general, the people who are believers and who have done really good deeds, they'll be like, expressed through, you can say. They don't have to go through that punishment, because that's a punishment. Even waiting is a punishment. So,
Because basically they're already in Jannah. They say they're still alive. So are they not in Jannah already? Like the birds of paradise?
Yeah, but they themselves are not in Jannah. Their souls have been given some part of Jannah, but they themselves still have to come to the day of judgment, right?
Well, what is they themselves, since the body is already gone and the soul is with the
But we're going to be given bodies, aren't we?
On the day of judgment, everyone will be given bodies.
They'll be given bodies on the day. We will have bodies on the day of judgment. Yeah.
So they will be there, but they'll be in the shade of the law. Well, you would assume they would be.
I mean, in some way, I'm sure they'll be given protection by Allah if they've done such a huge, because dying in the path of Allah is a huge deed. It's one of the biggest deeds somebody could do, giving their life for the sake of Allah. So, um, indeed, they'll be in some type of protection. What that means, we don't always know.
And what about pure souls, like children who died when they're very young, as infants or?
Children and stuff. What's the question about them?
Like, will they be standing?
I mean, everybody we brought forth for judgment. But again, those people who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored, those people who have given in the path of Allah, given their lives or done such good deeds, they'll be given mercy and sent off to paradise quickly, right? The waiting is a punishment. So that's only for people who deserve that. So if somebody has been pious and done what they needed to do and sacrificed for the sake of Allah, or somebody who's died at a young age, somebody who's innocent who hasn't sinned, these types of things, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, within His mercy, we really can't sit here and say, well, this will happen and that will happen, unless we've been told that. But we can just say, in general, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be merciful to them. Any other questions? All right, so some important information regarding zakat. This is kind of like a summary of the chapter.
Also, this is the last point before you start the next one.
Right, so this is like the summary of the chapter. So let's just go through that, inshallah ta'ala. Who would like to read? Okay.
Some important information regarding zakat. First, it is right to distribute all zakat to one of the 8 categories. It is not mandatory to distribute it on every category, even if they are present.
Okay, first thing we mentioned last week that there's 8 categories of people who can be given zakat. So if somebody wants to distribute that zakat to one category of person, or multiple categories, that's fine. It's a choice. It's not that you have to give to every single category of person, because that would make it difficult. So if you give it to one category of that person and they're deserving of it, then that fulfills your obligation. Second,
It is permissible to pay all of the debtor's debt or just part of it.
as we mentioned last week, one of the categories zakat is to help pay off debts of people that they cannot pay off. If your zakat, let's say, doesn't pay off the full debt and you can only pay off part of it, that's fine too. You're just doing what you can do.
And zakat should not be paid to a disbeliever, nor to an apostate, except for those whose hearts are to be drawn close. Nor to one who has abandoned salah, if one accepts the view that such a person has become a disbeliever, which may be the radio except if it is given to him on the condition that he performs salah as an incentive for him.
Okay, so third, zakat should not be given to a disbeliever. We mentioned this before, that zakat primarily is for the Muslims or somebody who's apostated. They can also not be given zakat, right? So they're a disbeliever. Except in the case where somebody who is coming close to Islam and we feel that they're going to become Muslim, and we feel that by giving them some support, they'll see the generosity of Muslims and accept Islam, then that's a category that can be given in that specific case. But otherwise, disbelievers are not given zakat. Nor should it be given to somebody who has completely abandoned salat. This is not somebody, that doesn't mean that somebody who's just lazy. This means somebody who just doesn't pray at all, doesn't go for Jummah, doesn't pray anything. Except if we're also trying to draw them closer to good deeds and say, look, we're going to give you this money. You have to start coming to the masjid. You have to start praying and stuff like that. And we're encouraging them to do so.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
On the second one, where it says, it is permissible to pay all of a debtor's debt or just part of it. In other words, that means paying off someone else's debt and considering that zakat.
So let's say we have a brother Umar here. He's in debt for $10,000, right? He's tried hard to pay it off, but he can't pay it off. Now you have $2,000 that you want to give in zakat. It doesn't completely pay off his debt. You can still give it to him to help out with his debt, because maybe somebody else will give some other part of it too. Bryce, can you make sure that door is closed, please? Bryce. Yo. You didn't hear me. So that's what that means.
What did you say?
So that's what that means. So if brother Umar here owes $10,000 in debt and you can only give 2,000, close the door, please. Close the door. Then we can still, if we have the means to pay the whole thing, great. If we have the means only to pay part of it, that's fine too.
All right, then on the third one, where it says zakat should not be paid to a disbeliever. Well, for example, I'm the only Muslim in my family. So am I not allowed to give my children or grandchildren a gift of money?
A gift of money that's not your obligatory zakat, that's fine.
Oh,
You can
okay.
buy them things, you can give them gifts, you can do good deeds for them, and you should. But the obligatory charity has certain extra conditions, and that should only be given to believers or somebody who's coming close, right? Based on those conditions. But yes, you can. Anything else?
That's all.
4. It is not permissible to give zakat to a wealthy person. Since the Prophet ﷺ said, there is no portion in it for the wealthy nor the strong person who can earn his money.
Okay, so it's not permissible to give zakat to a wealthy person or somebody who can easily earn his living. We did talk about some conditions of, if somebody has a temporary thing where, and this is again back in the day than it is now, of a traveler who's cut off from their wealth, maybe wealthy back home, but then yes, that person can be given zakat. But otherwise, if a person has access to money, he's wealthy, and can earn their living, they should not be given zakat. Number 5.
It is not permitted for an individual to give zakat to those he is obligated to support them as parents, children, and wives.
All right, so you don't give zakat to the people who you have to support. Zakat is not given to your children, your wife, your parents, because those are people who you are obligated to support in the first place.
Okay, 6. It is permitted for a woman to pay her zakat to her husband if he is poor, since it is established that the wife of Abdullah bin Mas'ud wanted to pay zakat to her husband, and the Prophet ﷺ affirmed her wish.
Since the woman is not obligated to pay for the expenses of a man, right? She's not obligated. He's supposed to be the one supporting her, right? I know nowadays we have it the other way around many times, but a man is obligated to support a woman. If he is poor, if he's under one of the categories of those who can receive zakat, then she can give her zakat to her husband because she's not obligated to provide for him. 7.
7. Zakat may not be transferred from one country to another, except in case of pressing needs such as famine or poor people are not to be found in the country transferring the zakat, or to support Mujahideen, or the righteous authority transferred it for general benefit, etc.
So the author here says that zakat should be basically given in your location. You should give it to people close to you, unless there's a pressing need for it. For example, we have the situation in Sudan, situation in Gaza, the situations, where it's a very dire need, then zakat can be given there. But the first obligation is to take care of the people who are closest to us. So if you have poor Muslims in your country who are in need of it, it's better to take care of them than um, a similar situation in another place.
Eight, the person from one country who gains wealth in another land on which he is required to pay zakat must pay it where the wealth was acquired and should not transfer to his country of origin except in case of pressing need as is criminal.
So a person who gains wealth in another country, so let's say I have a store in Pakistan that I earn wealth from, but I live here in the United States, then the zakat from that store should be given in the country it was earned in.
Nine, it is permissible to give a poor person from the zakat but will suffice him for several months or for the full year.
Okay, so if you give a poor person from zakat, you can give any amount of money, whether it will last him the whole year, whether it'll last him a few months, you can give him any amount based on what you owe.
10, zakat is mandatory on silver and gold, whether in the form of coins or bars or jewelry which is owned or lent out, or other forms, because the evidence mandating zakat on gold and silver are general without detailed distinctions. There are scholars who make an exception for jewelry which is worn or lent, that no zakat is due on that, but the first point of view is stronger from the aspect of its supporting evidence and is safer in discharging one's responsibility.
So zakat is mandatory on gold and silver, right? We mentioned that before. Whether it's a form of coins or bars that you have sitting there for investment, or jewelry which is owned or lent out, um, or any other forms, because there's evidence of zakat on gold and silver in general. Um, there are a number of scholars who make an exception for the jewelry which is worn, the jewelry which somebody wears, that they know zakat is due on that. Um, but the safer opinion is the first one, which is giving the zakat, because it's it's safer, and just because you've discharged your responsibility of it, you're not shorting it at that point. Okay, number 11.
11, there is no zakat on the property that the person needs to use. For instance, food, drink, furnishing, a house, animals, a car, clothing, etc. The proof for all of that is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. There is no obligatory charity on a Muslim with regard to his poor and his slave. The exception to this general rule is gold and silver jewelry as mentioned earlier.
Okay, so there's no zakat on somebody's personal property that they need for their daily life. So the food in your house is not calculated for zakat, or the furniture that you have, or your house itself, or the cars, the animals, etc., your clothes. Um, those are not calculated in zakat.
12, the property which is set aside for rental purposes, such as real estate and cars, etc. The zakat due on it is levied on the rent earned from it. After the lapse of a year, if it reaches the minimum nisab by itself, or in conjunction with other property in the same category, then zakat is due on it.
So if you have property which is set aside for rental purposes or cars, then um, the zakat is calculated based on the rent that you earn from that property after the year has passed.
Not the value of the property.
According to this, not the value of the property, no. All right, and that ends our chapter on zakat. Any questions? Any questions on zakat?
I like how it has a little summary at the end. So you can refer back to it.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Go ahead, look at it and ask any questions. Questions? No? All right, so now we know about zakat, and next week we'll get into fasting, right? Okay, which is good because we'll finish that up and have that before Ramadan, of course.
Actually, I think I'll be done with the book.
We'll probably be done with the book before Ramadan, inshallah. That should be the goal. All right, inshallah. The class is online for anybody who wants to rewatch or take notes. Should we have a quiz next week?
Then we have class, then we'll be back.
When Sister Diana's back?
Then I will be here this week.
You're not here next week, right? So we'll have a quiz the week after. So on the
But you can't test me on what I didn't get that week.
no, we won't do anything new next week. Then we'll probably review some stuff, and do something a little bit different. So next week's the 14th.
We can start on fasting, but the quiz will be on zakat. The quiz will not be on.
Yeah, we could start the fasting chapter, but the quiz will be on zakat. That's true too. So the 21st we'll have a quiz, and that's good because we probably won't have class on the 28th because it was a Thanksgiving break. So we'll have a nice quiz. All right. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.